live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. Good to have you. Last Wednesday of February. February is always a blink and you miss it month. And Monday is March. But the funny part is that Monday is March, yet this entire time it's been March. Don't you think? Chew on that. Good to have you along for the ride. Steve Pulaski here. Joe Viso in the red. Dominic Guanzon, trademark blue polo. This is Sleepless with Steve. A relatively light show today. I mean, the movie we're talking about is a little lofty in parts, so we'll get into that. But like me and Joe were talking, it's very, very sparse news. Nothing earth-shattering outside of a couple Spider-Man bits here. Zack Snyder's Justice League cuts obviously coming soon. He's got another movie that's coming out on Netflix in May, Army of the Dead. I'm sure we'll be tackling that when the time comes. But not a lot to talk about, but we've still got a good show for you. A couple reviews. I'll end the show with a solo review of Wrong Turn, which they rebooted, and you've got to see it. I'm as surprised I'm saying that as anybody else. Just a quick question before I throw it over, just generalities. Do you two know the movie Wrong Turn?
No. It's actually one of
Neither
those
of you
movies,
do. Wow.
Those early 2000s. I know it's from the early 2000s. But I've never seen it, and like I always forget it exists because I just never seen it.
Yeah, Eliza Dushku, I can never say her name. She's in it, and they made 5 sequels to it, and now a reboot. And when I'll end the show talking about the reboot, we'll also talk about Malcolm and Marie. Came out earlier this month on Netflix. We'll dive into that. And then we're going to start the show a little nostalgic, but before we get to that, I always have to ask my lovely co-host, how are you gentlemen doing? Dominic, how was your week?
It's been a week so far. It's not too terribly bad. Just glad that we can move about again. This heat wave of 45 degrees, high of 45 degrees, and thankfully nothing flash flooding too bad with it. I mean, the neighborhood I live in doesn't really deal with that too much at all. It's a lot of pavement, but also coming with that is also a lot of drainage. So that's nice at least. But just pretty much just chilling. My birthday is in March, and my God, I can do a retrospective on that. 1 year, my birthday happened just as everything was shutting down in Illinois, and the fact that I'm reaching 1 year later on that moment, when everything was shutting down, it felt like the world was ending. It's crazy to think about. So when we cross that bridge again, I might say a bit more, but man.
About a year ago, I was planning to go to your surprise birthday party.
Yes, exactly. Wait, what? There was a surprise birthday party?
You know about that. You know about that. You turned it into a live stream.
Yeah, we're going to do taco meat and have tacos for my birthday because I like tacos. But unfortunately, we had to cook all of that ourselves and eat it live on air. It wasn't the whole stream, but we did eat tacos.
It was a fun stream, and it also sparked this revival, if nothing else.
That's right, it did. So you're welcome, everyone, all two of you watching.
Absolutely. Joe, how about you, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I mean, like Steve said, the news this week was light when it came to movies. If you're a comic book fan, yeah, like you were rolling in the news with Spider-Man and the Snyder Cut, because that's all I would see every day when trying to find news is Zack Snyder's getting paid to make the Justice League movie. WB exec said, "Oh yeah, the Justice League movie is a piece of shit." Christopher Nolan says, "It's like, oh man, Nolan's still being talked about in the news." Yeah, no, I've been having a pretty good week. The only thing I gotta say is, rest in peace, Daft Punk, one of my favorite electronic bands growing up as a kid. I loved them so much. I love Random Access Memories. It was one of my favorite albums that year. It's sad to see them go, but like, it was one of those things. The minute I heard they were starting to work on stuff and the pandemic hit, I was like, they ain't gonna finish anything, are they?
Yeah, I'm surprised.
We never got a Super Bowl from them.
Yeah, that's a Super Bowl.
We never got a Super Bowl from them. I I was waiting for that too. So another album. So it's like, I don't know. When Chelsea and I heard the news, we were kind of crushed because we're not the biggest Daft Punk fans, but we are fans. And what my favorite track from them is still One More Time. And when it goes to the bridge and things are more like free flowing and it loses it, they drop the backing track behind it. But then when it comes back, that's like straight up one of my greatest musical moments that I've ever experienced coming from any music and ever. And I listen to a lot of music, so it's good, man. So yeah, I mean the two are fine. They have money, but the group, rest in peace. So.
Yeah, that was sad news to say the least. I really wanted them to take off their helmets and be Hall & Oates, but we can't have everything, unfortunately. I was hoping. I remember when Ram came out because I listened to that all that year. My buddy and I, Contact, Doing It Right, Get Lucky, so many great songs off that. And I remember telling my buddy, I said, "Dude, what if these guys were Steely Dan? You know, like how awesome would that be if it's Fagan and Becker?" Yeah, I know. But I'm like, what if they were Steely Dan? Like, let a man.
What if they hired those two French dudes to pretend to be them and it was Steely Dan? I'd be down.
Because there's certain parts of their songs that remind me of Steely Dan. Even on Ram, there's parts of their arrangements and such. But rip Daft Punk. I'm glad you brought that up though. But we'll move forward. First topic, going to be kind of a lighter one, but I think it's one worth talking about. Saw this New York Times article on a film group I'm a part of, and it was worth mentioning. Shout out Hannah Sellinger, who did a really good job on this. Got a number of different people she was talking to about the value and nostalgia of VHS. And it's funny because I recently watched, I don't know if I talked to you gentlemen about this. I recently watched The Last Blockbuster. And that was a documentary on the last remaining Blockbuster store in Bend, Oregon, which is mentioned in this article. And it got me thinking about how we're at that point now in American culture. Can't speak for other countries, but in American culture, where the bygone act of going to the video store summons nostalgia in people. We're about at that point now because I think a lot of us haven't been to a video store in years. A lot of us haven't really thought to go to a video store in years. But then you think back or you watch, I don't know, old commercials or you see the headline that Family Video's closing or something like that. You get nostalgic about the experiences. We've talked a lot about Family Video this year and them closing. But I think VH same thing. And I'm of the belief that if vinyl could make a comeback, why can't VHS to some degree? Maybe not soon, but not far off either. Here's a question. I'll throw it out there. I don't know how we want to take this. Maybe whether or not VHS could come back, the likelihood of just sort of remembering different things about it. I'm really opening the floor to you guys on this. But here's my first question. I do. Do you still have a VCR?
I don't because my family always did this, and I'm kind of a little salty they did this now in retrospect. Anytime we got the new thing, they will always take the old thing and either donate it or sell it. Like when I got my Xbox 360, they took my Xbox and my GameCube and donated it. And then and retrospect, I'm like, why did you do that? But at the time, I'm like, I don't care. I got the hot new thing. I don't need to play that anymore. Here I am now, 20 years later. I'm like, damn, I really want to play Super Mario Sunshine and Legend of Zelda Wind Waker and all these other games. So no, I do not own a VHS player. I wish I did though, because now that I've moved a few times and everything, I'm coming across VHS tapes I used to own as a kid, and it's like, damn, it would be nice to watch this movie sometime because I own it, and now I have to go on Amazon or go to FYE to go find the DVD or Blu-ray version of this movie, and it's hard as hell to find sometimes.
And Dom, you don't have one either?
I do not have one. My parents might at their place. I don't. If so, it's probably broken. And the truth is, my family and I have, my parents and I should say specifically have, we've kind of been in that for video games. That's different because I still have my OG Xbox from 2003 when I got it. I still play the OG Halo. That's different. But in terms of media and how it's been replicated enough to be on streaming now, because we have DVDs. We're kind of lazy in that regard because it's we have the Lord of the Rings on DVD. We have that, and The Godfather. We have that. but like we still like if we catch it on DVR, my parents, if they still catch it on DVR, they'll be like, oh hey, The Godfather, let me record this. We have the DVD. You can just you're missing the first 5 minutes like from the wedding when Don Corleone's just put the DVD in. Nah, I got it right here. It's like I can rewind it. I'm like, God damn it. And you know what? To be honest with you, I'm kind of the same way. Because it's on streaming and it's like I already have my computer up. It's probably in better quality on streaming than I have it on this old DVDs. So in terms of VHS, going back to that, other than family movies, home movies, which we'll get into later and stuff that we have, that stuff of course is priceless. But other than that, like I have, we stopped. Like I think we have Mary Poppins, 2 episodes of Pokemon, first series, and like I think like. I kept it because it was funny. It was an instructional video on like how to operate your vacuum that the brand would give you, so you could know how to operate the vacuum. Oh man, I should have brought those in for today. I should have gone back home, back to my parents' house. That's good. But yeah, that's all I got, and we don't have VHS player now.
I have 2. I have one at my apartment, and they're both combo.
That makes sense.
They're both VHS and DVD. The DVD player on the VCR I have sucks. It doesn't work. It freezes. It glitches. The VCR works fine, so I'll always keep it. But the DVD port's useless. And then I have one at my parents' house too. I feel like I'll always have them too. I feel like I'll always have those because and not many talk about this. But it's true. There are still many, many shows and movies on VHS that were never released on DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming. I know this because I have a lot of VHS tapes that I know were not released on any other format. A lot of old Nick cartoons. Have you heard about the Leslie Nielsen golf instructional videos? Got those on VHS.
Yes. Those are on VHS, and there's a few videos on YouTube, and those are amazing. I don't even play golf. Watch those. Those are amazing.
I hate golf. Hope Tiger Woods is good though. Hate golf, but like those are fun. But anyway, there's a lot of oddities on VHS, and that's kind of what this NY Times piece by Selinger talks about. There's a lot of oddities. Like even Dom said, we laugh about it, but like companies would release instructional videos on VHS tapes. I remember there was a site years ago that had like a bunch of random VHS tapes, and I never bought any, and I'm sad because the site doesn't exist anymore. I don't remember what it was called, but it doesn't exist anymore. They had a bunch of crazy stuff. I remember for $10, I almost got it. You could get a VHS tape. It was an hour long. It was the 1999 Wendy's training video. And I would have loved that. I'm still mad. You could probably find it online, but I'm still mad I didn't buy that. But it goes to show you, though, there's a lot of these like oddities on VHS because it was the first major home medium right there. VHS first was manufactured in 1976. It took off in America in 1977, and it lasted till 2006. So you got that 30-year timeline of stuff that was released on VHS. It was the dominant medium. And, like you think of the lifespan, I know DVD seems like it's been around forever. DVD's been around since 98 or so. Blu-ray's been around since like
majority of our lifetimes.
2007, I think Blu-ray came out. Yeah. So the majority of our lifetime, but still it doesn't come close to how long VHS has been around. And I think this article goes into a lot of interesting facets. I don't know where you guys want to take it, but I'll start with you, Joe. What were some of the takeaways that you found insightful or observational in Selinger's piece?
Dom, I'm actually going to throw it to you real quick. Hold on a second. I'm having some technical difficulties over here.
He's reading. He's reading the article.
No.
But I'm just seeing. I know. You always read this stuff. You read it more than I do sometimes. But first of all, my favorite takeaway was streaming. Mr. Booth said was, quote, promised as a giant video store on the internet where a customer was only one click away from the exact film they were looking for. And then like it goes into how like, okay, yeah, but like companies got involved. Now there's the streaming wars and subscription services, as if no one saw that coming. Like, you're kidding me, right? Like, there's no way you weren't expecting the production companies and the rights holders for all this stuff weren't gonna be in massive legal battles. It's just amazing to see how Netflix was never gonna be the one-stop shop. It was gonna that stuff was bound to happen. It happened, but beyond that, just the nostalgia factor. It reminds me of how it's hot on the internet. It's been hot on the internet for like 5, 6, 7 years now, but just the aesthetic of old VHS tape, where they'll film something traditionally, but then they'll run it through like a VHS player. I don't know exactly how they do it, but they'll capture that aesthetic. Like, there is a part of me, it's kind of it's cliche and overdone by now, here in 2021. But for me, it's like, I still like this, because those like white lines of static when you fast forward and rewind, it's like, yeah, that stuff's good. I don't know why. It's a visceral thing that only Gen Zers and baby boomers just wouldn't understand. And why would they? Because it's kind of dumb in and of itself. But for me at least, and maybe you guys too, and for all the production people that love that aesthetic, it's really cool. Some people go too overboard with it. Like, damn, filters are strong with this one, but. Yeah, and the last thing I'll mention before I throw it back is just as much as I admire, like, say, oh, is it coming back? Is VHS coming back? Personally, I don't think it will. I think it's too much of a hassle for true comeback. Vinyl is different, because I think Joe's ready to talk about that, but I'll say vinyl is different because it's got certain sound qualities, whereas VHS, it's kind of a different angle. If you're not creatively, like, you're trying to portray something in the 80s, but if you're just trying to do the best thing possible, the best quality possible, then I don't know if VHS is really going to make as big of a comeback as at least vinyl has. But I do appreciate how you mentioned that VHS was really good for for people of color and for those in the lower income who weren't able to afford friggin' film reels of film. No, they could get a VHS and they could film stuff, not just home movies, but amateur film. Like, that's pretty awesome. So making things more accessible, I'm always about that. Sorry, Joe, what were you gonna say?
No, I'm kind of right there with you, because, like, yes, this article, like, as you were pointing out, it talks about all the nostalgia factors of it, and even your example that you brought up. One thing I always love is, just as a kid, like, you get done watching the movie, and this was my favorite thing whenever I rented something from Blockbuster, was rewinding the movie and just watching it.
Yeah.
Rewind it before sending it back. Was rewinding it all.
Be kind, rewind.
Yeah, be kind, rewind. Rewinding it all, watching it all play backwards. And then, like, sometimes it's kind of like, oh, wait, I want to see this scene again. And just, like, watch it there and then start rewinding it again. Like, that is such a moment that you can't get with streaming, because, you just get the little thumbnail of, like, your Netflix indicator of where you're at compared to actually, like, literally watching the movie like Tenet is just going backward.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. We lost that with Chapter Select in DVD.
We did, yeah.
We lost that way before.
Sorry,
what were you gonna say?
No, but I agree with you. Like, when it comes to it, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard when it comes to like VHS is coming back to compare to vinyl, because vinyl is
like a renaissance.
Thing. Yeah. It comes down to hearing. It's music. Compared to VHS is a visual element. Like, I would never want to watch a big budget action movie that we get today on a VHS tape. I don't think it would look
understandable.
Like, same thing with, like, even just like anything that has a great cinematography, I think will undercut it. There can be, though, probably certain films, like, if you want to do an homage to, like, 80s or 90s films and you want to, like, set it, like, like, we had Jonah Hill's directorial debut with mid-90s, where, like, he changed the aspect ratio of it, or even the Lighthouse, where it did that and black and white. If you want to, like, make, like, a limited edition run of VHS tapes of that, I think it works for those kind of movies. Cool. Like, especially, like, a limited edition run, because there's probably, like, tons of people who would, like, eat that up that own VHS tapes. And it would just add to the effect, like the audio quality, the visual quality you get from a VHS tape, just popping that in and, like, seeing that with a film like The Lighthouse or mid-90s. Even, like, screw it, like, like those like 80s throwback horror films, if they want to do it in that style too. I think that would be really neat. But, like, in terms of it, like, coming back as big as vinyl has, I don't see it. Maybe I'll be proved wrong, and we'll see.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I like how you mentioned the beauty of old school rewinding a VHS tape, because there's also something that's so much more appealing to the eye and appealing to the senses than that stuttering digital fast forward we've got so used to. Well, even with DVDs, the just frame by frame, staccato presentation of that. It feels less organic in some sort of ways. We'll talk about authenticity with Malcolm and Marie. I don't want to get ahead of myself there, but and going back to, not going to spend a whole much more time on this, but there's something too with that documentary I watched, The Last Blockbuster. There's something about physical media that gives movies a presence and gives movies a gravity versus kind of the weightless algorithmic experience that is streaming. Like I went to a used DVD store this weekend too, like picking up the DVD, reading the back of it, examining it, seeing the little thumbnails and the photos and something. There's almost like a bonding sort of thing, or like, trying to find, something that you might like, as opposed to, just scrolling and reading on a screen, And then the last point I'll make too is what Kevin Smith said too in that Last Blockbuster documentary. Go check that out if you haven't either. I know I feel like I'm plugging it, but it's worth talking about, and it loans a lot to this. Kevin Smith had a great line in the movie, in The Last Blockbuster, because he's talking about, he's like, I worry about like the future of movie going and the future of like comic book stores and the future of DVD stores and video rental places. He's like, what this leads to then is, he said, it leads to a world of instant gratification based on technology, a world of immediacy, and a veil of anonymity between social interaction. And he's like, that inevitably breeds, whether we want to admit it or not, a shittier world.
And it's accelerated
and he's not wrong.
By the pandemic.
Bingo.
No, I'm totally with it. It's accelerated by the pandemic too, because we're cooped up in our homes, or at least we should be. And we're not going to live like monks, right? So we got to turn to streaming. There's a lot of people I know that was like, yeah, I've never really picked up Netflix before, but here we are ever since the pandemic, or, during that summer, that's what I did. Just to what you were saying too, about just like taking the act of physically touching something. I have not quite gone to a used DVD. I mean, I got a disc replay, but that was more for video games.
That's what I was talking about, actually.
Yeah. And but I have vinyl, and that I can attest to, because in my opinion, like half of the superior sound quality of vinyl kind of just comes from the fact that I am physically picking up something. I'm engaged with it, as opposed to like, boop, Spotify, boop, boop, got it. But no, I'm putting out of its sleeve. I'm putting the needle. Oh, I missed the needle. I got to make sure it's right at the start of the track there. And then I'm looking at it, and I'm fully engaged. Just that mental aspect, that's whatever parts of my brain are engaged differently, that you don't get when you're popping on your playlist on the start of your commute. Which means you should just get a vinyl player for your car. But that'll be fun to put on. But it's certainly different, and that I can attest to. So will that happen with VHS? I highly doubt it. But certainly it is an aesthetic. That is the one thing we can take away. Is I think we can all agree on. I mean, we all agree what we've been saying. But I think like the aesthetic, I think there is something that will not go away, because that defines that generation of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, without a doubt.
Well said. Very well said, gentlemen. We'll march forward. We got a movie to talk about, Malcolm and Marie. Quick question, Dom, did you watch this with your girlfriend? Did you watch it with Chelsea?
I specifically did not. I was told to not. I don't read reviews or anything beforehand, but I was just seeing on like YouTube thumbnail videos like, don't watch this with your girlfriend. Don't watch this with your SO. I'm like, okay. I'm not going to do, because I looked at the Wikipedia page, didn't read the plot, of course, but I saw like, where's the cast list? Oh shit. It's just them. It's just them. I was like, is this Malcolm and Marie, or is this Malcolm versus Marie? God damn.
I wanted to know, because you're the only one of who's like, engaged in a romantic courtship, if you will. So I wanted to know if you watch this with your Sig. This is going on my list of first date movies right next to Midsommar. But anyway, I'll start by saying this. In the lexicon of theater, as if I'm one to talk on that subject, but Malcolm and Marie is what you'd call a two-hander, where the entire narrative is kept focused on two people. In this case, it's a bickering couple returning home from a movie premiere, Malcolm's movie premiere, played by John David Washington and his longtime girlfriend, Marie, played by Zendaya. And one could see this easily being a stage play. I think pretty easily this could be a stage play. And I'm glad to see the masses are talking about this movie too. It seemed to have some staying power on social media. I think it also helps that Zendaya is a star and she has a big following. I think that helps a ton.
It also, the guy that has made the thing that made her a big star right now. I mean, like, she was a star before this, of course, but Euphoria, the HBO shows, what really blew her up. And the guy who wrote and directed that show directed this movie as well and wrote it.
Sam Levinson, yep. Yeah, so you got the Euphoria connection there as well. I almost forgot to mention that. And some degree to this movie, which is basically a 108-minute argument, pretty much, with some lulls, some romantic lulls in there. But this movie's basically an argument in the middle of the night. And when you're talking about two characters that are left to their own vices in a house together alone, it's really not too different, the conceit here, to what we've been living the past 11, 12 months. In some degree. And this movie was really shot in secrecy early in the pandemic, around May or June, I think, and with a very minimal crew. There's only 2 actors. They have very skeleton crew working on this movie. And you know what? I'm going to say it right now. This is the first gem, in my opinion, of quote unquote the brewing onslaught of COVID cinema. This is one of the first gem of this, and I think we're going to get a lot of insufferable movies. We already got Songbird, which nobody talked about. That landed with a thud. Nobody. I'm in film circles, and I didn't hear anybody talk about that one. And then you had Locked In, the HBO Max movie with Anne Hathaway, which sucked. Like, you didn't. This is the first gem, I think, to be produced in this pandemic. What say you about Malcolm and Marie, Joe?
For me, man, this movie, like a thing that was actually made in a pandemic compared to Songbird. To me, this is a better way of making a film during a pandemic. You have just 2 actors, you do like a stage play, like you were saying, and you let them just take control and let them lead the movie. Some of my favorite moments of this movie is just basically when they are arguing, or when John David Washington is by himself just yelling and screaming. Like, one of my favorite moments in this film is right after they get into an argument, and this is, I think every guy can relate to this, is right after they get into an argument, John David Washington goes onto a field and he starts fighting with grass. And I was just like, yeah, I felt that. There's also another great scene, like, he's just trying to find his wallet, and like he's just screaming all over the place, and like Marie's just like, did you leave it there? Did you leave it in this place? He's like, I don't know where. Oh, I found it. And she's like, where was it? He's like, oh, it doesn't matter. My dad just popped his head in. I got thrown off now. God damn it. And like, yeah, like he's just
20-minute argument with him that leads to nowhere.
I love that. I love that in the film. God, that just really threw me off my rhythm. Holy shit. Don, take it. I'm sorry.
Okay. So yeah, with this movie, I admire it. I just absolutely admired it because it's something that I personally don't experience too much. I was told that maybe there was some similarities to A Marriage Story, which I didn't watch, with Scarlett Johansson and
Adam
oh my
Driver.
God, he's a really good actor.
Adam
Yes,
Driver,
thank you.
yeah.
But I never saw him. Supposedly I saw the memes of him punching the wall, but apparently there were similarities there. But what I do like about these types of movies is that when it's just 2 people in a house, nothing but dialogue, it leans on everything else. So now you don't have CGI, you don't have fancy nothing or other. You're not doing crazy exotic film locations, or even that's literally just 2 characters. Then you're really stripping it down to the pure essences of acting, cinematography, dialogue, pacing and screenplay, of course, which is present in every film. But here, it's such a very focused, hyper focused thing that, again, as Steve mentioned, maybe we'll get tired of seeing that shit real soon in the coming year. But at least for now, here, I'm really digging it. And of course, a movie like this does live and die on its writing and acting. But thankfully, at the very least, it's acting just firing on every cylinder from both of these actors beautifully. These two actors are hot shit right now, and for good goddamn reason, because they are top of their game and on top of the world right now. With Zendaya being making hits in Spider-Man and all that stuff, and John David Washington just in so many movies now. And thankful, it's like, if you ever thought it's like, oh, overexposure, are these guys really all that much? Watch this movie and you will not have a doubt. At most, maybe you can say that they're overacting at parts, but there are other scenes in this movie where it is, it not at all. The subtleties are beautiful here. And then the other thing here that really it lives and dies on is its screenplay, and that is going to be, and its dialogue, which I've seen is apparently a huge point of contention. Personally, I really dug it because it, with the assistance of all other things like cinematography and whatnot, it manages to really mix up every single argument. It is exhausting. This is not a movie that I immediately went back and went, other than maybe some humorous parts that really add levity. But in terms of watching the whole thing from the beginning, it's like, oh man, I need a rest from this, because these two tired each other out for 90 minutes. It wasn't even that long, 90 minutes. And I felt tired out in a good way, but not truly rewatchable in terms of the whole thing. So I'll stop right there for now, highlighting those two aspects, but plenty more to talk about.
I think that's a good start from both of you. For the patient and engaged viewer, this is a feast of dialogue and really sublime performances from two actors that leave everything on the floor. And it's not without its flaws, I'll say that much. It was kind of like the come down for me after watching this movie. I was riveted. And then, you thought about, there's parts of it I'll get into later. There's things to nitpick here. But overall, I would say they knocked this concept for the most part out of the park. And going on to the performances too, there's a lot of different angles in this. I want to talk about specifically the what I've been calling it in the review, and just other stuff I've been talking about with this movie in my review, the quote unquote free smoke to film critics. I want to get into that myself because I have thoughts on that. I have thoughts on that, but there's one debate, because Malcolm's a filmmaker and he's coming back from his film premiere. There's an extended debate about the value of authenticity in cinema between Malcolm and Marie, and very funny at parts, kind of confrontation the two have. The irony, though, of that conversation dawned on me late in the movie. This movie would fall apart if the actors, namely Zendaya, doesn't handle the movie's many tonal shifts without some degree of authenticity. And that's no disrespect to John David Washington, who's very good here, and I think solidifies himself as a star with this movie in terms of acting ability, especially coming off being an empty action figure in Tenet. But Zendaya, I think, is the glue here. I think she is the one who gives this boiling, simmering rage that kind of cycles between passive aggressiveness to exploding, contempt, to kind of manipulation in one scene that had me in the first half, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But she cycles through a lot in this movie, and she makes you believe it. She is so damn good. As soon as I finished watching it, I tweeted and I said, as if I have any weight, but I said the Oscar campaign for Zendaya starts now. Yep. With Malcolm and Marie, and she would more than earn it. Joe, you've said kind of the least of the movie, or you said less than both of us here. More thoughts from you on Malcolm and Marie?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that. No, Zendaya in this movie, yeah, as much as I was praising John Day Washington before I lost my train of thought, Zendaya here is the star, in my opinion, though. She outshines John David Washington, not in a bad way. She doesn't, John David Washington and her have great chemistry, of course, and they're both good in this film. But she, whenever she just monologues on her own, you're just pulled into it immediately. And like there is that scene, yes, where she like you think something bad's about to happen, and then she literally not only plays Malcolm, she plays you too, and you go like, oh, son of a bitch. But yeah, there's so many good scenes. There's a scene where she has a breakdown, and you just feel for her, and like you're screaming at Malcolm, like, just listen to what she's saying, you idiot. Just listen to her for like 2 seconds, please. Like, you know, it's just like you're believing everything Zendaya's putting out there, and I completely agree with you. Yeah, the Oscar like for 2021, if she's not nominated, like I'm gonna be like pissed off as hell. I know it's so early on in the year, and we have plenty more films to go, but it's just like in terms of a performance and like what she did here with like very like, you know, in a lot of restrictions too. Remember, this was made during COVID times, early COVID too, so it's just like films today right now that are being filmed, like they have like a great system now to work around, you know, COVID measures and making sure everybody stays safe. This was like very early on. I have no idea what was happening on set, and she nailed it, and she still like kept on her A game.
For sure. Dom?
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's Zendaya's kind of manic, you know, somewhat, you know, emotional, all the words that are used to describe a woman who just has more than one dimension to her. It does feel different, not like other girls. No, it does feel different than what you see in other movies where there is a similar. So Zendaya is a recovering drug addict, somewhat, I think, far removed. We don't get an exact timeline, I think, but I think well removed, at least a few years from that from what she was recovering from. So it's not like we're in the middle of wrestling with that. So we kind of avoid that cliche as well. A lot talking about cliches, but we avoid that cliche as well. So we kind of it melds really well with her character, and I'm glad someone was able to finally make use of that without having the mandatory. It seemed like it was going to go that way for a second, but it avoids the mandatory. Oh, she relapses. She's gonna, you know, overdose on pills in the bathroom floor, and then that's gonna be, you know, wake up in the hospital or whatever. I was tired of seeing that. I was tired of seeing that for a while, but it particularly hit with Hillbilly Elegy, with Amy Adams's character there. Not so much acting, because I think that's more so on the screenplay's fault and directing or what have you. But I mean, this in terms of that specific angle of kind of the character who is a recovering drug addict, who is a woman with a lot of, you know, emotions and a sordid past or whatever that she's, you know, trying to move past on. It feels very much anti Hillbilly Elegy there, and how it also blends into the business of movie making, where it's not too overblown. It feels very grounded, because it's at the end of the day, it all comes from, or at least it starts, the spark is from when it's just a guy reacting to someone criticizing his art. That's all it is, or the thing he made. And I think all of us, especially the three of us who, you know, whenever we see the occasional comment on our reviews, our discussions, where it's like, we all have a visceral reaction to that. So seeing John David Washington, having that be his kind of the start of the plot here, and how that kind of boils over into so many other things, is amazing. And it's really in touch with the human element. But no, for real, because also, like, we've all had that moment where we're arguing, not even with an SO, but with someone, your parents, a friend, a coworker, where it's like, yeah, we're arguing about one thing, but we're really talking about this shit right here. And it's just seeing that play out in such a really cool way, in a really cinematically rich way. I don't know if we want to go on to that now too, but just an awesomely, very creative way that, you know, maybe I'm behind. I probably am, but it's a breath of fresh air from what I've been watching lately, and I'm really glad about it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because it's been a while. I mean, I've been reading a lot of plays this year, as I've mentioned before, but to kind of see one, you know what I mean? Because I've been reading a lot of August Wilson recently, so it's been a lot of stuff in my head that I've conjured up images and such. It's very cool to see something like this play out. And on top of what Dom was saying too, this movie has some very bitter choice words for film critics that I was entirely amused by. I really was. And film critics have been kind of snippy in a way. At least the reviews I've read about this, they've been snippy towards this idea. If nothing else, it was a good hack for Sam Levinson. Make a movie that criticizes film critics so that when the film critics criticize your film, it looks like that they're just bitter and resentful. It was actually kind of a genius little thing that he did. But moreover, I honestly found when Malcolm's lashing out at a critic for the LA Times, and I don't know if you guys know the connection to that, but I'll mention that at the end of this. But I found most of the critiques that Malcolm had about film critics pretty valid and understandable. I was kind of nodding and laughing while watching that scene because Malcolm's beef is that critics spend so much time assigning labels and subtext to art that they kind of miss structure, experimentation, tone, and different other elements that go into a movie. That's kind of at least how I took it, the essence of his beef with film critics. At the same time, he's frantic about waiting for the reviews of his new movie to come in. So therein lies a little bit of a paradox.
Too.
Pays to read it. He gets the credit card with the paywall and everything, which is great. Like Joe mentioned earlier, great scene. But here's where I will say this. Because they keep name dropping LA Times, was the first publication that Malcolm sees has reviewed his movie, and a glowing review, and he's enraged about it.
Yeah.
About some of the comments from the critic. That might not have been the greatest move for Sam Levinson. I did a little digging after this. Sam Levinson directed a movie called Assassination Nation a couple years ago. I don't know if you guys saw that one, but he directed that in 2018. And I looked it up. I was just like, okay, what was the LA Times review for Assassination Nation? I'm like, what did they say? So I looked it up. I'm not going to name the film critic, the female film critic, but the title of the review was Assassination Nation is exploitative horror that has the gall to lecture us on girl power. Girl spelled with 4 R's. And it was a scathing review of that movie. So I'm like, it probably wasn't the best move for Sam Levinson to go the extra mile and name drop the publication that slammed his last movie. But I do agree with most of his criticisms.
Yeah. Because now you did make it look a little personal, especially when like Malcolm talks about how the original, like the first time he starred in a movie, like that critic reviewed it and like totally like wrote a bad review, and he like was so pissed about it. So it's just like, oh yeah, the comparison's even more clear now.
Free smoke, anyone can get it.
It sucks. It sucks in that regard. But you know, before knowing about any of that, and just in the moment, I am glad that he didn't get too preachy with it. Even though John David Washington goes on a really long monologue. Because at that point, it's not a dialogue. I know Zendaya is physically there in that scene. It's a monologue. But even though he goes on a really entertaining and long ways about it for a long time, really tangibly long time, it's entertaining the whole way through, and it blends so well with his character. So the nuance is there because it's welded into the character. So. And I think even directly after that, Zendaya does like a quick like line about like, no, but this. And John David was, oh shit, oh yeah, you're and it's like, yeah, okay, good. We're still in it. It didn't feel too personal, although certainly knowing that now, that probably there's definitely an angle there that we can't escape, and better to know.
He's talking about, like ultimately what he's talking about, it doesn't feel as personal compared to, like, of course when he drops the LA Times things, but where that conversation eventually goes, or that monologue eventually goes, you see the point that they're making.
Yeah, and not only that, he drops a lot of common kind of buzzwords and very charged language. I'll say just in terms of things that you hear all the time in the world of critique, in the world of art discussion, and all that stuff, and even just hot button issues and stuff that I'm not even saying I disagree with, but more so just like I have a feeling that scene in particular may turn a lot of people off. Maybe not necessarily turn off the movie, but just be like, all right, come on, he's really on his thing now. But I thought it was handled really well, as best as he possibly could have, touching all of those topics. But, one thing I will say, moving on from that, is that one tactic that I did notice is with this film is that I really enjoyed the aspect of tell, not show. I don't know if you guys noticed that watching this movie. Obviously, you see a lot of their anger and their fighting with the two characters, but it really becomes like a backwards mystery of like discovering just how deep the rabbit hole goes in this argument, which is why the tactic works. Tell not show. We didn't see the movie premiere. We didn't see the movie. We didn't see the actress that the two are kind of arguing about. We didn't see the past of Zendaya's drug abuses. We didn't see any of that. They just talk about it, but it's handled beautifully because it charges a plot into overdrive, and it as you learn about it, as each argument you're thinking, and in every argumentative scene you're going, yeah, no, why are you being like this, Zendaya? Oh shit. Oh yeah, no, she makes a good point. And then like, yeah, Malcolm, what are you doing? Oh yeah, and I swear to God, 5 times throughout this movie, I was like, oh shit. Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure I made that face like multiple times. I don't know about you guys.
No, the tea was really good. The tea was very good when it came to the drama, man.
Oh yeah,
every
it was
time,
hot.
Like, especially when one person leaves the room and comes back in, you're just like, ooh, what's they got? You're like,
yep.
Let me see what they got for us.
I was talking back to the screen with this a handful of times, or like I'm sure my neighbors here love me, but I remember watching this movie and I'm saying like, why does she got to go there? Why does she have to bring that up? That shouldn't be a deal. And then on the flip side, like 10 minutes later, I'm like, you see, this is why women hate men. This is exactly why. Like,
That's what
I was going off, man.
I was like,
I mean,
all men are fucking horrible, and then I'm sorry, but like, on the flip side, it's like, Zendaya, why are you being like that? Stop it. He's trying, okay? But yeah, on every cylinder, this movie. It's just so hyper focused, and it's a pressure cooker, yo. It is a pressure cooker, and I just watching it explode time and time again. By the 5th or 6th kind of argument, where it's like they make up, it's beautiful, man. 2 minutes of makeup and then 10 minutes of arguing. The fact that he was able to hold me for so long, and that even though I was emotionally exhausted by the end of it, but kind of in a good way, how you're exhausted after a good roller coaster where it's like, oh man, I need to calm down for a while, but goddamn, that was good shit right there. Oh boy.
And I'll add to this too, because there are, and I kind of saw him, after I was like, done being exhausted and kind of leveled out. I waited, about 24 hours actually before I wrote the review of this, and to think it over. And there are issues. There are a few issues here. I think the main one is that things tend to get a little monologue heavy in this movie.
Yeah, they get a little pretentious, in my opinion. It's at some point.
It's not even I mean, it's not even the pretend. Like, you could argue the pretentiousness. That's not the angle though that I take it. I think the problem there is this is not how as entertaining and as riveting as this movie is. This isn't how spousal arguments play out. This isn't how they work. We cut each other off. We interrupt ideas. We stutter. We say things we really don't mean. And sure, they do that a lot here. But the impossible eloquence of this movie makes for an opportunity for the actors to kind of leave it both on the floor. But it's like, I almost say it's Sorkin-esque. This is not how people argue.
Yes.
This is not how people go back and forth, especially in the heat of the moment. Like, that's where it feels stagey to me. And it doesn't take away from the riveting factor of it, but it does get a little long-winded. I think this probably would have worked better as a 30 to 40-minute short. I think it probably would have maybe worked better as that, as good as it works now. And then when you get these long monologues about film, like reviews or authenticity of film, then it starts to feel like Sam Levinson kind of airing his own misgivings in some ways.
Yeah,
that's sort of my cornucopia of little issues I have. I don't know where you guys want to take that.
No, I agree with you on that, because like, as much as I like that scene and I love what John David Washington, how much effort he's putting into it, and it ends on a great line too when Zendaya's like, wow, and that's how you react to your good reviews. Like, it ends with like, it's a fun scene, but it does feel like out of place. It feels like, well, I was watching like this couple argue Now I'm watching John David Washington read like an email from Sam Levinson about the LA Times and how they trashed this Assassination Nation review. And it's just like that. It just doesn't feel natural, like you're saying. And there are just moments too, like like some of the words that they're saying. Like how like it's like, oh my god, dude, did you pull out the thesaurus for that when you were when you were writing the script? Like, come on, man. Like it like for a movie that like the first act, I thought it felt grounded, especially like the way like Marie was starting off cold shoulder, then started to reveal everything, and then like he aggressively eats his mac and cheese. I'm just like, man, I'm already loving this. Like this is great. This feels like a real argument. By like the halfway mark, it starts to lose its steam, and you start noticing like, no, it is more of like, let this person have their moment. Okay, now I'll talk. No, like people cut each other off and everything, like you say. It's very Sorkin like, and it's not a bad thing. It's not. It's just that like it. I do agree with Steve. I honestly sat there and I was like, by the end of the first argument, I even thought to myself, I'm like, damn, what if this like worked better as a short? Like, because I feel like I'm like, okay, so now the rest of the movie has got to play out like this, and we're only like 25 minutes in. What if it's just like, what if we just ended the movie there? Like, I think it would have been great as like a little pandemic short, but whatever.
In terms of how, I absolutely understand how it may get preachy and certainly unrealistic in a Tarantino-esque, Sorkin-esque way. I was actually actively thinking that at some point in the movie. I was like, I'm gonna treat this like a Sorkin, where it's like, awesome dialogue, I love it, but like no one talks like this. This does not make any sense. They would have fallen asleep half an hour in. One of them, probably John David Washington, because he's kind of a man-child with ideals, to a degree as well. And he probably would have gave up, slept it off, and then they continue fighting throughout the week. But if you give in, as someone who tries to give into the movie a little bit more, once they've earned my trust, once they've earned a good opening, I'm like, all right, let's see where this goes. I was a little more sympathetic to it, but hey, all points valid. I can't deny that. Yeah, like, because it's getting. You're seeing this in real time. My head play it out. It's like it's just hard to shake it off now that it can get a little personal. Steve, I wish you hadn't mentioned that. God damn it, about the Assassination Nation review, because now it's like specifically so you're saying the reviewer was also a woman?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god! So that doesn't certainly help it.
That he always
oh my gosh! I
didn't in my written review of it. I didn't put her name in there because you could find it pretty easily. But I'm like, no, this poor woman's hotline's blinging, her DMs are open. I'm like, nah, I ain't gonna pour salt in the wound. The poor woman.
And apparently, there's another controversy. The 2-day Twitter controversy about, because Sam Levinson is a white director. I actually thought he was black because I didn't know who he was beforehand. Just because John David Washington was talking about, heavily about race issues, not so much race issues, but just how that plays into his art form. I was like, oh no, he's a white guy. Doesn't make a shit of difference to me, honestly, because as long as the actors are able to portray what they're portraying, then I think it works effectively. Certainly have allies.
And that's aggravating. And you know what? That I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but you know why that aggravates me too, and is that then if you have a director, then if a white director doesn't makes 6-7 movies, no black characters, then he gets blasted.
Exactly.
And he gets blasted. You can't have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. So I paid no mind to that. That's where I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, me too. And I'm sure there's boundless, examples where it's like, but in this specific respect, I'm like, dude, no. I mean, again, blind test. I didn't even freaking know, dude. And this is a wonderful showcase for two of the strongest, black actors working today. And it's, so in that regard, I'll leave it there, like Steve as well. So I think we're going to move into closing arguments. Not closing arguments. Might as well be closing arguments. But
move into stars.
Reviews. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to give it. Oh man, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna say 3.5 out of 4 stars, just because that macaroni and cheese, dude. The fork scraping the bowl sounded so goddamn good. That's the half star. That's the extra half. Was just the sound design on that bowl scraping alone. But no, really, this is an incredible showcase for these actors. Even though the screenplay, as much as I just completely, bought into it and surrendered to it and enjoyed the beautiful Raging Bull-esque roller coaster that it was. Really, what's most important, what you cannot deny here, is that these actors are firing on every possible cylinder. And if you weren't familiar with them before, you absolutely will now. So yes, Oscar nominations for both of these actors began as soon as this movie was released. 3.5 out of 4 stars. Sam Levinson, you've got my attention now. I actually do want to go back and watch Assassination Nation. I looked at his profile and I was like, oh shoot, he helped direct Endgame. Oh no, Operation Endgame. I don't know what this crap is. But, I'll leave it there. So yeah, 3.5 out of 4.
Now, I really like that you brought up the Kraft macaroni scene. And I swear, when Zendaya, if she ever retires 40, 50 years down the road, on her reel of just roles from her career, there needs to be the scene when she's scolding Malcolm and going, I make you dinner. Whoa, what a cunt. This mac and cheese is delicious. It needs to be that whole line right there, that whole bit right there.
Great.
That was... Yeah, I rewound that. I watched that like 3 times in a row. That was so good, so pristine. I'm not gonna repeat much of what Dom said, or I'm not gonna go really too long because Dom kind of echoed all of my sentiments really there. And I've already written like an 8-paragraph review on this movie on top of talking about it here. It's a solid 3 out of 4 stars for me, almost 3.5. I give it 3 because I do have some misgivings with it, but this is a tremendous showcase. These are tour de force performances from both Washington and Zendaya. They both need Oscar nominations. I think they both deserve them. And I think this movie, too, I'll say it again, is the first gem in what is going to be an onslaught, don't kid yourself, of COVID-centric cinema that's going to come throughout probably most of the first half of this decade.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good bar to put up there. It's 3 out of 4 stars. Joe, send us home on Malcolm and Marie.
I'm also giving it a 3 out of 4 stars. I do think it's good. I think it's a great watch on Netflix and showcases some of the best talent working today, young talent as well. But yeah, I mean, I do think it runs a little long as well. I know it's weird to say when the movie's only an hour and 36 minutes, but its credits aren't that long either. It's only 4 minutes of credits, so that hour and 32 minutes, like, I do feel like it kind of overstates its welcome by the end, especially like the last 5 minutes where it just keeps cutting to them as they're brushing their teeth. And I'm just like, all right, let's just wrap this up, guys. Come on, let's go. Let's get the final closing argument here from both of you, and then finally go to bed at 6 in the morning after you just spent the last 3 hours smoking cigarettes, eating mac and cheese, and yelling at each other and drinking. But
it's a good Saturday night.
That's a great Saturday night.
That's what I call Saturday.
But even when I say that is basically what happens in that movie, they just argue, smoke cigarettes, drink, fight grass, and eat macaroni and cheese. It feels very down to earth for the most part, and I loved watching it. I loved watching them play these characters of Malcolm and Marie. Definitely check it out. 3 out of 4 stars.
Very nice. Quick point, because I knew that it was going to be on this list the second I finished it. And I waited about a day because I think they had to get their tallies right and everything. This movie is on the list now of movies that most frequently use the word fuck.
Yeah.
Any guesses how many times they said it? Joe, I'll give you a first guess.
137.
400.
Oh man, we got one that's way too low and one that's way too high. It clocks in at 284.
Oh.
284
That
uses.
feels right.
Yeah, I had to go to that That's one of my favorite Wikipedia pages. I have it bookmarked on my computer. It's one of my favorite Wikipedia pages.
In that respect, the dialogue is very realistic. 287 uses of the word fuck.
Yeah, when you're arguing, yeah.
Very egotistical people, an actress and a director. Oh, yeah. Hell yeah, that's accurate.
That's very true. So I guess I'm ending again with another solo review. Why not? I did Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar last week. And in the spirit of Malcolm and Marie, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stay on my host shit, and I'm going to review another movie. Wrong Turn. This is the reboot of the 2003 Eliza Dushku movie. And yes, it goes to show that this is a crazy time to be alive. Seeing as the first great horror film of 2021 is a remake or a reboot, however you want to look at it, of a movie that's not yet 18 years old. The original Wrong Turn can't even vote yet, and it's being rebooted. I rolled my eyes just like you probably did when you heard that Wrong Turn was being rebooted. The original movie came out in 2003. It was kind of the start of the backwoods sort of era in horror movies. You had Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses, Hills Have Eyes, Wolf Creek, and a lot of movies that were about like cannonballs or just, backwoods folk and stuff like that. But Wrong Turn had some longevity. The movie spawned 5 sequels as recent as 2014. Didn't watch any of them, FYI. But this one, I was very skeptical. I'm like, they are really rebooting Wrong Turn. Don't forget, they also made Cabin Fever, a shot-for-shot remake of Cabin Fever. We all know how much that one sucked. And they also remade Child's Play. There have been a number of really strange choices of movies to be remade, and I cannot get over that they remade Cabin Fever. But as far as remakes, reboots, I don't know what you want to call this. I think it's probably more of a reboot. Wrong Turn delivers. It's written by Alan McElroy, who, fun fact, wrote the original movie. And this is a more mature and substantive movie than Wrong Turn from 2003. For starters, this movie doesn't feature cannibalism or cannibals, which was a big part of the Wrong Turn franchise. And I think that's going to upset very few people. But I'm very glad they didn't feature it. As far as the plot goes, it concerns a group of 6 kind of hip, young, diverse, Bernie Sanders supporting hikers that go into the Virginia, and they want to hike the Appalachian Trail to find this old Civil War fort. And they stumble upon this really small town, a lot of backwoods people, rural people, for lack of a better term, who warn them to stay on the Appalachian Trail. Well, like in any good horror movie, they don't listen worth a damn. They go off the trail, and they wind up in this mountainous region of the Appalachians. And essentially, then, they stumble upon this community known as the Foundation that was started in the late 1800s. It's this self-sufficient community who lives in the Appalachian Mountains, and they've completely divorced from society. So this group of these very 6 young liberal characters, there's an interracial couple, there's a gay couple, it's the most diverse, politically correct group of individuals you can possibly describe. We all went to liberal arts colleges. We know these people. But anyway, they wander off the trail, and they wind up encountering traps set by the Foundation. And they wind up getting kidnapped and taken to the Foundation, this sort of closed compound that's run by these people who are covered in moss and animal skulls and everything. This movie's very similar to The Green Inferno, Eli Roth movie, which is very good if you haven't seen it. It's very similar. The film posits these young liberals with their own beliefs in contrast with the rural folk who they claim is racist and close-minded. The tension is palpable early on. The group pisses off another group of barroom locals in the movie, or in the town of Virginia. And then the trail is their introduction to the ways of life of these Appalachian Foundation group. And it's really ultimately a survival test at the end of the day. Subtext aside, there's not lost at all the bloodshed and the brutality. This is a gross movie in some scenes. It's gory, it's bloody, it's violent. I mean, the first big murderous set piece involves a giant rolling tree trunk down a mountain that plummets right towards these hikers. And it doesn't a lot to the imagination in terms of gore. But McElroy has more on his mind, though, this time around, writing reboot of Wrong Turn. than just kills. He eliminates that cannibal angle from the story, which again will upset some, I think, but it grounds the film in a more believable other reality that's not so cartoonish. Because if you remember the original Wrong Turn, it was about a group of hikers stumbling upon a group of cannibals in the wilderness who were disfigured and horrid looking because of years of inbreeding. It was a very crass premise, and it was a very crudely drawn premise too. This movie, I don't want to say realistic, but it posits a nice little moral quandary in the middle of everything. Because outside of this, one of the hikers, Jen, played by Charlotte Vega, her father is searching for her. He's played by Matthew Modine. And he's looking forward. He's trying to garner information on the Foundation in efforts to find his daughter. And this movie has an utterly diabolical ending, too, that I did not see coming. I have to mention this, too. Diabolical, ugly ending that I was all there for. It was hard not to be cynical going into this movie, considering other useless remakes, like I just mentioned, Cabin Fever, which I still can't get over that they remade, and Child's Play, and a lot of other. I mean, when you start remaking movies that were released 18 years ago, like, that's a problem in a way. But I'll say this. This is different. Wrong Turn is different. It's bloody. It's got some good subtext to it. I think it's very well acted. I think Bill Sage, who plays the leader, kind of the leader of the Foundation, I think he's very good. Charlotte Vega's game from the first scene. She gives this really kind of dirty physical performance in it. I had a lot of fun with this. It's gross. Don't watch it on an empty stomach. I'm as surprised as you, gentlemen. I don't know who I turned into, but I'm giving Wrong Turn 3.5 out of 4 stars. This was really good. It is the first great horror film of 2021. You can rent it on Amazon Prime Video, Google Play, and Vudu. It's not $20. Thankfully, it's only $6, I believe. Check this one out. You might be surprised, and I think Mike P. Nelson, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I think Mike P. Nelson, in some aspects of the world building he does with the Foundation, same with McElroy, who wrote the movie, some of the world building elements and some of the bodily horror, I think he took a page out of Ari Aster's blueprints in terms of how to make this really pop. I like this movie a ton. That's why we didn't have a ton of topics today, and I didn't foresee talking about the Wrong Turn reboot on Sleepless with Steve, but that's how good it is. Check that out. You can rent it now on a variety of different platforms.
Damn. I'm going to have to check this out
Stuff,
now.
Man. For reference, what would you give the original Wrong Turn from 2003? What star rating would you give that?
I reviewed it several years ago. I gave it 2.5 out of 4.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
I'll say this. I will say this about the original Wrong Turn. Ever since I was a kid, and even to this day, the opening scene freaks me out. I think the opening scene is very, very well done. But this reboot is a whole other level. Very smart.
I gotta say, I the minute you started talking about how diverse the cast is, like, you know, as a gay couple and everything and whatnot, I was like, oh wait, I did hear about this movie being remade because I saw a YouTube channel say, oh man, woke turn, am I right? And I'm just like, oh, okay, now I know where they're getting this from.
You know what? And if you want to call it woke based on its, you know, inclusive cast, you can. But I say this again. It's a lot like the Green Inferno, Eli Roth, where it's like it has this like diverse group of liberal characters, but it also makes fun of them. And it talks about how. And it talks about there's a great scene in a bar where the one local goes like, you guys have never worked a day in your life. And Jen, Charlotte Vegas character, goes, that's not true. She's an oncologist. He runs a nonprofit. He's a social media manager. and it doesn't take itself too seriously. There's some really fun bits of it.
I bet it. It's just that YouTube channel just saw it at face value and was like, oh, I have to tear this apart for views.
Woke turn. I like that. Now check this one out though. It is damn good. And I'm as puzzled as anybody else. And I'm going to say this too. It's been a great year for movies so far. I know we're only 2 months in. God damn, has it been a great year for movies though. You've had this, you've had Malcolm and Marie, we've had Our Friend, you know, Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. I'll die on a hill for that movie. There have been some really Judas and the Black Messiah. This year is off to a good start, is it not, gentlemen?
Yeah, it is. Other than that stupid detective movie that I forgot the name of already. No, 2021 has been off to a really good start.
I think Denzel Washington needs to take a page out of his kids' playbook, honestly.
For real.
I think he needs some lessons from good old John David over here. At the end of it, though, that's our show. Thanks so much for watching. Again, highlights will be posted on the very same YouTube channel you are watching right now, Sleepless with Steve. Next week, we got a double header. We got two movies. We got Minari, which I've seen. These two haven't. That's going to be a great discussion next week. That's going to be a lot of fun. That comes to video on demand on Friday. Also on Apple TV is Billie Eilish, the new documentary with her. We're going to try and review that as well. I think we're going to pull a doubleheader. I think it's week one of 2 upcoming doubleheaders, because then the following weekend we have Raya and the Last Dragon, and we're going to tackle Tom and Jerry.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot to cover in the next couple of days right here on Sleepless with Steve. I hope you join us for it.
Doubleheader.
We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock Central Time. YouTube.com/MovieWiz1. Search Sleepless with Steve. Find hours upon hours of our old content. I'm Steve Pulaski. Give props to Joe Viso, doing all the technical workings throughout the entire show. He's ceaseless in his commitment. I love it. And so is the other handsome man here, Dominic Guanzon, in that blue polo. Take care, guys. We'll be back next week. Reviews of Minari and the new Billie Eilish documentary coming. Until then, this has been Sleepless with Steve.